Great. I'm glad everybody's here for our discussion today. Let's talk about how we can help people grow. The topic of the day, what waves can you surf on to exponential growth? What does that mean to everybody?
Well, if I was in Japan, I'd be a little worried about a tsunami when you're talking about exponential growth coming in after an earthquake. But I guess if we can see that as a wave for our business carrying us forward of what exponential growth means, doubling your business year over year, I guess, is kind of that. But you're actually asking for more when you're saying exponential. We're talking about going 2 to 4 to 16 to 32. That's some rapid growth rate depending on which curve and which line you're looking at. Is it your top line revenue? That'd be much different than if you're maybe working off your profit line potentially. But both those things are important. You know, when you start talking about what is the foundation of exponential growth, I think it's a lot of one-to-many, trying to figure out one-to-many marketing. If I market to one person, can I get to 50 through them? Through strategic alliances, through connections and partnerships that'll give you that one-to-many situation. I often refer to it as other people's lists. Right? Being able to leverage other people's lists to grow your business and grow their business. It's a win-win scenario, you know, could go into them. So that's one example. I'm not going to dominate the conversation. Everybody else has better ideas than me, but that's just a little bit of my thought on riding the wave and not getting yourself wiped out by a tsunami.
Nice.
Great insights,
So,
Coach.
good stuff, Coach.
Yeah, and I just to kind of follow on that, I think, you know, we think of exponential growth as got to be double, 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 but exponential technically can just be consistent growth for the same. If you're growing at 10% a year, that is technically exponential growth too. I think the key is keeping that growth going. That's where you really get the power of compounding.
Yeah, the word exponential actually brings a not very pleasant recent phenomenon to my mind, and that is COVID. That is something that grew exponentially because the rate of increase of COVID infections accelerated. Basically, the rate was changing over time. And while that's not what we're looking for, essentially, the way to get to a higher rate of adoption of your products, services, solutions, whatever that may be, leads to new adoption without you being involved in the sales process. Greg alluded to that a little bit, and companies do. That's the reason they open channel partnership, channel models, right? It's because I don't need to use my salespeople to go out and get deals. I need a channel, a set of channels out there that'll do that for me. So to me, it is about recruiting others who will do the growth for you instead of you doing all the growth yourself. And there are multiple tactics and strategies how you can affect that.
Yeah, so in my world, one way to surf exponential growth would be to not wait till your receivables are received before you make that next investment. So if you have, working capital, the availability of capital can really help you grow quicker. And if you can do that on your EIN and not on your personal finances, that is a great recipe to be more aggressive, because if it doesn't work out, the personal finances are still fine. So that's what I think about of how to grow exponentially by basically using other people's money.
Excellent example, Tom. I've got two clients that are Jay Galt connected right now with Jeff Suval.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, both of them have come through. They started, I was coaching with them probably 2.5 years ago where they were under $100,000. Today, they're both breaking $500,000. And the transition to the growth, it became very apparent that we had to have the leverage potential, again, to do the exponential growth based off of getting capital available to us that wasn't on the personal line of credit. I see people growing into that, and it's a smart model to get yourself out of the, I'm putting my family on the line for this job, because you start getting commercial jobs in these cases, that's what they're getting, where we've got to have 80,000 or so capital up front to make sure we can do the jobs, and we can see those coming, but we've got ourselves prepared for it. So hats off to what you're doing with Jay Galt, and I'm totally on board with the model.
Yeah. Thanks so much. I like this group. So the other thing, and I'm sorry Angelica dropped off because she is in the same area as me, is, when you're growing exponentially, you don't necessarily have time to keep the closest eye on your costs, and those can start to really ramp up. So if you have a company like ERA or Schooley Mitchell to help you do that without a lot of time spent, you can really help your profitability without a lot of effort. And so that's another way to help your growth.
From my side, let me give my 2 cents on the subject. How to help my customers to be able to grow exponentially. In my opinion, from my angle, everything depends of having them ready with all the processes, all the tools, and all the structure that they need in their sales team in order to be able to handle that growth. Meaning creating sales, having clarity about the definition goals, their quotas for their sales reps, and more important, being able to measure, because if you don't measure what you don't measure, you cannot track. So creating metrics, KPIs, and goals, and be able to measure those through reporting dashboard in order to be able to measure yours. That would be, in my opinion, the way how I could support my customers with their.
Excellent.
Yeah, one of the things that I've seen, and we've got a couple of customers right now going through some, I wouldn't say exponential, but unprecedented or unmanaged or manageable growth. And they expanded geographically, so they really their business went through the roof, and that brings about a whole set of operational challenges. So what we have done is use a lot of business process automation to take a lot of manual stuff out of their business, and focusing on core business processes such as order to invoice or invoice to cash, simple business processes. There's 18 different variants going on. We have actually helped them do that so they can do support their growth using the same resources through automation.
Well, absolutely critical to look at both sides of the fence, and certainly the more you can get the automation. I'm always telling my client, if you do something once and get paid on it the rest of your life, it's probably a good idea to do it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's right. That's right.
Good idea to do it.
Yeah. Scott, maybe, does saving taxes help us?
Tad, every now and again. I've taken some notes here, and I appreciate y'all for sharing that. That's good advice. But from one surfer to another, I will tell you, I've got 4 ideas here: the tube, the wetsuit, be safe, and the whale. The tube. Okay, if we've ever been surfing, when you're in the tube, exponential growth, that's, it's dangerous. Exactly. But the power of the wave, the power of the ocean. You can think of that, in my opinion, being the power of, the growth, because, when the tube comes over and you're under it, it's scary as hell. But also you remain focused on control and sustainability, and you can't let go of that. And if you do, you're in big trouble. And so much for your surfboard. The wetsuit would be, something that you wear to be ready and prepared. That's a lot of what I'm focused on right now, especially starting off this year. I've got on the wetsuit and I'm ready for the tube. I have my software, I've got my programs, I've got everything. I think I've got most everything that I need, to take on what I need to take on. And I wouldn't go in the tube if I don't have the suit on. And then the thing is to be safe. Once you have the suit on, once you're in the tube, don't take on too much too quick. I think a lot of companies find themselves in serious trouble when they I can do anything. I can take on, of course I do that. And of course I do this. And of course I do that. Yeah, no problem. We can all say that, but when it really comes down to it, we also want to provide a good service. And that's really hard to do when we're taking on everything. Like try answering a cell phone call while you're in the tube in a wetsuit. And lastly, the whale. We've talked about the whale in prior discussions, but I think, having one whale, we want more whales. one whale is not a good thing. And I think y'all know what I mean, but one big client, we don't want one big client. We need multiple clients. We need multiple streams of revenue. And so that's my thought on surfing. And I love that we're talking about surfing, by the way.
Scott.
Thank you.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think a lot of things you said are really on target there, Scott. I think, Thomas mentioned some of these, and probably Coach Hess as well. But one of the things I'm doing right now is, forecasting cash flow out month by month for several years for a company is looking at very rapid growth and tying in an acquisition with that. And so, planning that out, knowing, and, in those forecasts, we're calculating what the limits of growth, internally funded growth are. And that's just, math that we can do to help you plan out to make sure you don't, like you say, kind of fall off your surfboard there. And so that's really important. I think that ties back to the metrics, I believe Cesar was saying as well. I think there's been some really good points, and I'd like just kind of throw acquisitions as another way to grow. You can make acquisitions as another sustainable growth path, in addition to, kind of leveraging other people's Rolodex and contacts. What's a Rolodex? And
Something that rolls off of your desk.
Carl, I've got a couple more to add from my industry. These are more just ideas that would cross industries. I look for blue ocean products or services. So, for example, one of the things I've talked about is this high limit income replacement, where I can now get north of $100,000 a month for executives to hold down a team and even lock in their income, future stock options and future bonuses before they're earned, and protect a young executive. So great for employee retention, recruitment, talent acquisition. One of the things I also look for is demographic waves. So one of the things this is more the retirement stuff. Obviously, we know it's 10,000 people retiring a day. There's not enough advisors. Half the advisors in this country are over 60 and retiring. Won't be enough advisors to be more business we can handle. So I watch that. Third one is it's from some article. He called it moving walkways. What are there we can just jump on where the walkway is already moving? And the example that's most salient, I think, was Bill Gross, who ran PIMCO. He jumped on the declining interest rates, and he made an absolute fortune for himself and his clients over 20 years. That was just the moving walkway he caught. And where can we find those in our industries or advise our clients that is already moving? We just got to hop on and not exert as much effort to move along faster. So those are just some metaphors that I kind of thought I'd throw in the mix.
I have a few comments. So Coach Hess, he was mentioning at the very beginning, how do we identify multipliers or multiplying effects? And it has to do with a few different things. It has to do about channels, the way you get to your to your clients, to your target segment. And the other one has to do with the products that you sell or services. Software is what venture capital investors like the most, because you can scale it very easy, and so it's easier to scale and it's easier to grow. But rather than basically focusing on software, how can you scale your product offer, right? And how do you make sure that offer appeals to more clients, a bigger scope of demographics? And so that's the other basically portion of the equation. And the third one has to do with processes, tools, metrics, the discipline, the organization that has to be there in order to basically forecast scenarios, identify challenges that you may basically face in the future, and prepare for them. And somebody was basically looking at cash flow, or mentioning about cash flow, and how they forecasted that scenario and prepare for it in advance, very well in advance. So it has to do about three things. The experience that I had has been that usually channels are the ones that you can exponentially grow faster through and there's several different ways to do it, right? Because to develop a new product, that takes some time, that takes a lot of resources, that takes analysis and research in order to understand what do you need to have in that product in order to appeal to those new demographics, right? And so to develop a product, certify the product, and basically get it ready to be launched, that takes more. You have to do it, but you gotta focus on the things that are easier and are faster in channels, relationships, networking. That's probably the closest one, as long as you have the discipline, the organization, the resources, the tools to do that, right? So that's my take.
Excellent.
Better wrap up our conversation here. Some fantastic ideas on how to surf the wave of growth. So thanks for your participation.